Tricky stuff. So anyway, let's talk about how COVID is impacting your path to value, everybody. And there's two levels that I would love to talk about if anybody's game. One is your company. So I just talked today to two people who work in bankruptcy filings, and they've stayed busy throughout the entire crisis. They pushed a lot of things to remote workers, and now they're bringing different people back into their office, but they're also having to really quickly learn new bankruptcy rules and rules against eviction. And, you know, so it's at the same time they're dealing with the crisis, they're dealing with, on the one hand, yay, we have a lot of demand and we're really busy, but it's a changing landscape and there's a lot to process. So they're trying to figure out, is their path to value more, should we protect people from bankruptcy during this time, or should we just try to process them as quickly as possible and get them through the process, which was their normal path to value? And, you know, can they be hiring more people because they're growing? So that's kind of an interesting case. So I'd be interested to hear if any of you, you know, if you're working at the moment, how this whole thing's affecting your work, if at all. You know, is it kind of making a material difference or not? So anybody want to chime in?
In the mining industry, at least from a macro level, there have been a big push to go much more digital and be able to operate mines and process plants remotely. And so that has been in works, but it's been really slow. And I think that with COVID, that has pushed it to at least companies to recognize and want it more, and then providers to do stuff to push it out quicker. So it hasn't been overnight. There's still a lot of bugs to work out, but the desire and their recognizable need is definitely there now. And so I think it'll come a lot quicker because of this.
Interesting. I hear parallels there in what is happening with online learning. You know, it was kind of happening anyway, and now it's happening faster, and more people are feeling like they have to get there. I mean, I know it's a totally different kind of technology, but other examples or counterexamples, or?
One of the things I noticed is it's in my situation, it's helped a little bit because I'm still getting everything done and training someone. So, and then one of the other groups that I work with, they were saying that their productivity is way up from what it was in the office. So it's kind of interesting. So we're kind of curious to see if they do like, yeah, why don't you just stay at home, and not sure what's going to happen.
Yep. No, well, and I think people are surprised with productivity going up, but a lot of people who have young kids in the house, there's definitely productivity losses. And there was an article I read about some, especially moms, who were working kind of 9 to 5, but they were working 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. because their kids had to do homeschooling and stuff in the daytime. And it was reminding me, when I was a little kid, my mom worked the night shift. She worked 11 to 7 shift. And then she'd come home at 7 a.m. and give us breakfast, and we'd all go to school, and then she'd rest, and then she'd be there when we came home from school, and then she'd go to work at night. But that's not what these people are talking about. They're just talking about trying to get it all done. So yeah, does anybody have any insights into how K through 12 school or childcare is going to be changed in this new world?
I've heard a lot of what ifs, and I don't know, I've heard about Chicago public schools, St. Louis public schools, and a lot of talk of like either every other day or half day in the morning, half day in the evening, or like afternoon or whatever, and hybrid. The school district my mom went to, they were building like a new high school or something, so they were overcrowded. So they had they already have historical information from a 6 a.m. to whatever 1 p.m. and then a 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. or whatever that time was. And so they're talking about going back to that. And I don't know, I think like the teachers are going to have something to say about that. And then childcare is a whole nother story. I don't know. It's just a lot.
That's,
And
I've just heard similar things on it's more about scheduling. So maybe a full school year instead of summers off with, I don't know if it's more of a quarterly and then 4-week break and kind of rotating those breaks. But I agree with EP. The teachers are going to be, haven't heard a solution or really a whole lot of comment for teachers, but I think once something really gets into place, then you'll hear how that affects them.
yeah. Well, and a lot of this, if we want to switch gears from your company's path to value to your personal path to value, I heard a story of someone who was in the entertainment industry. They got furloughed in January, and then they trained up as an EMT and just moved up to Seattle, and they're driving ambulances. And I thought, that's pretty radical shift of your personal career trajectory. They're pretty young. I mean, they're kind of 24, so they hadn't been in the entertainment industry for 40 years and they're making this change now. But the idea of saying, and of course you guys know me from 3D TV, like things happen on the outside. How does it change your career? So if this was an opportunity to say, okay, entertainment industry for the time being is going to be dead. I'm not going to be able to do what I want to do. Healthcare and emergency tech is going to go up. I can go there, and I think they're making $26 an hour or something, so the whole story unfolded as it made sense. They wanted to be doing it. And so right now they're busy and working. But on your own career trajectories, anybody want to chime in? I mean, I'm happy to tell you what it's doing to me, but I don't want to hog the talk. So anybody thinking about different things in their own path to value, personal path to value?
I was kind of thinking about going out, getting into a smaller company, help it grow. But now I'm like, I don't know if I want to leave because a lot of smaller companies are having a hard time. There's a lot more issues they're having to deal with. I mean, Dominion's not going anywhere because we still got to have energy one way or the other. So it's put on the back burner a little bit.
No, and that's, I mean, I would agree that it's more risky to be with a small firm now, especially if you stayed in energy. There's going to be winners and losers. But there may be ways to just keep your feelers out so that when things turn, when the corner is turned, you're ready to jump. Is anybody doing anything on skill building? Learning more about how to, I don't know, do online work, taking a Zoom tutorial, that kind of stuff?
I feel like I definitely have tried to branch out in that area. Zoom is like something I've done a lot of research on, but also other things like even learning all of the features in Outlook or all the things that would make our life a little bit easier. And even learning a whole bunch of social apps to communicate with our family or friends, I think has been a good learning experience for me. Not just professionally, but also personally, because then you just have a broader, set of skills that you can use.
Excellent. That's really good. Well, I have a friend who's a professor in Russian studies, and her standing in the school has been precarious at best because ever since the Cold War was over, Russian studies has been kind of nothing. And so I've been working with her as a friend and as a colleague to she's trying to write a grant for studying Russian disinformation and other things like this. What really helped her to get some standing in her university was she, back in January, February, started to learn all about video capture and video lighting and uploading videos and streaming and all this audio editing videos, like stuff she'd never, she's not quite my age, but it was, she just said, I'm just going to do this because everyone needs it. And now she's becoming the go-to person across not just her department, but other departments. And instead of being like, oh, who cares about what you teach? She's an important person now in all the meetings. So those kind of skills, social media, Outlook and Slack and Microsoft Team and Prezi and lots of things are, I mean, and many of you already have those skills, obviously. I'm
gonna jump in.
Yep,
So
okay.
I just thought of something too. I've talked to two of my neighbors recently, just in the last week, and they both have PhDs in a hard science, and they're both on the research track, and they're both finishing up at the university, and they're both from out of the country. One is from Mexico and one is from India. And in the last week, I've had conversations with them about how their research has been put on hold and there's no funding for their research because all of the research funding is going towards COVID funding, and how they have been completely thrown off course. And my neighbors from Mexico, if they don't find something by September, they have to move back to Mexico because that's when their student visa expires. And so it was kind of interesting just to have those conversations with them to learn more about not just us in the United States, but how it's affecting the rest of the world too, and how their career tracks have really been thrown off their projected course of what they thought they were going to be doing at this point in their, schooling.
Oh, yeah. Well, I hope they can figure something out, because that sounds like a really, not just a challenge, but a time-sensitive one. Yeah, and I think I've talked about my daughter, the one who was in China before. So she got evacuated from China. The Peace Corps, originally they said they would not pay them unemployment. And then she and lots of other Peace Corps people lobbied and pushed. And so they did get unemployment for being basically fired from the Peace Corps. And I think she applied to 94 jobs between January 23rd and last Friday. And she got a job. So she just started working on Friday. But, and that's a American citizen who, doesn't have such a tight timeline. But yeah, it's been interesting. So her job will be in New York City, 1 month remote, and then move close enough to come into the office once a week. And then they're planning on being in the office by December 1st in New York. So everyone has, so do you feel better when someone gives you a plan, like, we're going to do it this way? Or do you feel better when they say, let's just wait and see?
I'm all right with go ahead.
No, there's just too much uncertainty right now to know if that's the plan or not.
Yeah.
So to me, I feel like a lot of the effort and time being taken to plan for the phases of COVID it's almost like too much. That effort should be reallocated into something else, like I don't know, the free school lunch program or whatever it is to serve the people who are hardest hit. I don't know, that's my personal opinion.
Well, yeah, and when I saw it detailed from the University of Utah, I think their, whatever it is, yellow, orange, red thing is about 40 pages long. So you're right. If they took all those smart people and had them do something else. But you were going to say, Kevin, are you okay with the wait and see approach?
Oh yeah, I feel like the wait and see is okay as long as people are doing something. Like if someone's saying, here's the plan, we're going to wait and see. That's our plan. And then if other entities came in and said, okay, well, we're going to wait and see, but we can't just wait and see forever because there's a lot of people who are being impacted by it. I mean, I've been talking to people, and my issue is there's a lot of people who have died, but there's a lot of people who have lost jobs and economically are hard hit. And there's way more on that side than there are on the other end. They're both bad, but I don't feel like it's a good idea to do nothing about one and completely worry about the other. So you kind of have to find creative solutions. I mean, the restaurant industry seems to have done sort of okay with some of them, where they're like doing curbside. There's a bunch of restaurants that I know of that were doing discounts just to keep people working, keep the inventory there, because now things are starting to open up. People don't have the inventory to open up. And so there's going to be another bottleneck there with shipping and getting everything. And so it's like, if you stop everything completely, getting it going is going to be another issue that you have. Whereas if you can kind of not totally stop it, but just slow it down, picking it back up might not be such a burden.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, there's a report I read from PwC that I'll circulate to you guys after, which is a survey of 350 or 400 CEOs and C-suite people, and they sound a lot like you, Kevin. They sound like, we're concerned about our supply chain. Yes, we're concerned about health, but we're also concerned about, keeping our people employed or losing ground to our competition. And supply chain is real. I mean, so many things that come from China, especially, I can't tell at all. I don't have any insight to whether it's COVID related or politically related, but there are a lot of, like Sony is a company right now that if you write to Sony, that you get an auto reply saying, you don't expect to hear from us for a while. Don't expect to get product for a while. Don't expect to get returns and exchanges for a while. Don't expect to get anything for a while. And, unclear if that's, China, Japan, Vietnam, or if that's political, or if that's supply chain, or if that's just the guy who is supposed to do it, is in the hospital. I have no idea. But it does make you feel like, how do we measure and how aware are we of the economic hardships? So, I have friends who are saying, I'm bored, I'm out of work, but then I don't know if it's socially and politically correct to say, well, do you need anything? Are you getting unemployment? Are you getting a loan? Are you getting paid? Or are you, starving? I don't know. That took a dark turn. But at least it's socially acceptable to ask people if they want help to go get things. I mean, I have seen a lot more people who just say, do you need anything, in terms of more of a general, I'll go make a run for you if you need something.
Going back to the planning comment, I struggle with a lot of these companies, mine included, that put out plans, because they put out plans in isolation. Like, this is what they say that we're supposed to do, so we're going to do it, and this is what we're going to do. But it seems like a lot of those plans aren't in recognition to what's actually happening. We said we're going to be in yellow, so now we're going to be in yellow. Or, we said we're going to have 100% of our people back, so now we're going to do it. Or we're going to get all of our supply chain, or we're going to start ordering on these dates. And they plan, but then I feel like there's not great adjustments to plans right now. Or it's planning to plan, not necessarily like planning to show you have a plan, not necessarily planning to benefit the organization or the employees of it.
Yeah. But do you see a better way? I mean, I totally get it, and I think you're really onto something there, but I don't know if there's a better way. I mean, my son's school made a big deal of sending all the parents, your school's going to start on whatever it was going to be, August 23rd, and here's how we're going to do the dorms and the check-in and this. And then they just sent an email out a couple days ago saying, oops, no, it won't be the 23rd. It's going to be earlier because we want to be done by Thanksgiving. And now I'm not sure, do I believe this one? Do I wait for the next email? And for me, it doesn't impact that much because he's just going to be a senior and he drives himself to college. But I could imagine it would be a big deal to a lot of people about when is school starting, how long can I work, how do I get there, where do I live, all that stuff. And that's just school. That's not even work. So.
I think it'd be interesting to see what how people respond to information, right? Were people throughout this time appreciative of the 9,000 emails about, how my company is responding? Like, did they actually want that information? Did that, does that relate to consumer satisfaction and kind of, I don't know the word, but like loyalty to that company?
Oh, you are so right. Even the ads, I've been having TV on in the background a lot while I'm, just alone working. And there's a couple ads that are for beauty products. And I just feel like how tone deaf they are. They're all about like, ooh, my wrinkles. And I'm like, you should be wearing a mask. Who cares about your wrinkles? Why are you promoting this? And then other ones kind of tweak something else where it's more like, we care about you. We're saving the world, especially the Amazon commercials right now. So yeah, if you were going to study communications, this would be just such a fertile ground. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of great research. But right now I feel like people are just guessing their best.
Can I jump in here?
Oh, yeah.
Kaylin, I actually really liked your point, and I would like to ask a question to all of you, because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're saying too is like, if the state that wherever you live says we're moving to yellow or we're moving to green, at what point do you decide independently what your own path to value is versus just doing whatever they say? So like, even if you are part of a company and the company says this or whatever, you know, where do you fall into that, whether you as an individual or like as a bigger team or a company?
Right. Well, and for yourself, and then what if your team is asking you that, you know? So yeah, let's hear from people, because you know, again, I'm right in the midst of this right now, deciding. There's a group of faculty who are going to refuse to go back unless certain safety measures are met, and there's already people who are throwing the faculty under the bus, like, well, they clearly are, you know, cowards and they're not committed to teaching. And I mean, it's already a war of faculty across the country. So I'm interested to hear how you guys are all deciding on your own. Even like going to a baseball game, EP. So you went to the game, and if somebody came too close to you, would you just sit in a different bleachers?
I don't know. And there were a lot of young kids there, obviously, and then other teams watching like my cousin's team and stuff. And it just seemed like a normal baseball game to me. Like, honestly, I didn't feel like anything was different. They were still high-fiving each other, you know. There were people like spitting sunflower seeds and peanuts, and like, I'm thinking, well, you know, if that gets on someone near them, I just felt like I wasn't in COVID anymore. And it's funny that you brought up the loyalty and response to communication, Callan, because my friend literally said, like, when all the places you've ever put your email sent you an email that said, here's how we're responding to COVID, and then all the airlines have been sending you updates, we'll keep you safe, blah, blah, blah. She literally just randomly texted me. We weren't even like having a conversation. We hadn't even talked about it. And she was like, I'm so sick of getting all of these updates. I don't care how, you know, whatever company it is responded, you know, where I bought my shoes is responding to the COVID crisis. That's like N of one, but I just, like, it literally happened, and she doesn't care. Right. So, I don't know. I thought that was like a funny circle back around, but I also today was thinking, like, life would be so much easier if there were just pockets of places you could live and go, people who like didn't have such stark opposition to your preference. You know, like, let's say, what if like University of Utah like is going back with X amount of safety measures and BYU is staying online? Then can't they just, you know, merge resources and allow people to pick and choose which one they're comfortable with, and then eliminate some of that time that's taken in fighting or about, you know, telling someone they're not committed just because whatever those arguments are. I don't know. I was thinking about that today.
No, honestly, it's been interesting, because I think not all of you know, but I left Utah and I went to another place, and I'm in a place where they're pretending it's a hoax. Like, absolutely. Just, you know, I walk around with my mask sometimes and people just look at you like, oh, maybe. And I mean, I can write on my mask, I am immune compromised, I am an old woman, I am a liberal Democrat, whatever I write on my mask, you know, they'll just spit in my face anyway. But yeah, if there were places you could go, but it's, yeah, it's so complicated. And if it is only hitting, you know, young people less, I mean, I would love to be 15 years old and feel like I can't catch COVID, I can play baseball with my friends. But then what about when they go home on the subway and they get someone else sick? So But also internationally, if you pay any attention at all, it's still a felony in Italy to not wear a mask. You can be arrested for murder if you breathe, spit, or cough on someone with an intention to make them sick. And they're enforcing that. So, you know, in Paris, I mean, every country is different. China had 36 cases and they locked down Beijing again. And we have whatever, 2,000 cases and we're just all doing whatever we want. So it's very confusing to be a citizen of the world and see this, because my colleagues in other countries, in Ireland and, you know, Italy and other places, just don't understand. They literally think it's genocide, that the Republicans are trying to kill off all the Black people and all the old people. And they're like, is that why they're letting it become herd immunity? Because that'll just clean out America. So how do you answer that? How do you answer that question? It's like, well, I don't think that's what the policy is, but actually, I don't know. So.
It definitely brings up interesting points. I know my colleagues I was on a call with a group in India and then South America, and how the response even by our company is to the individual locations is very different. Totally just kind of mirroring the governmental response.
Mm.
And so that is actually one reason why I think our plan is it's a plan, but it's not really valid, because it is not necessarily taking into account facts, or that it's just doing stuff to follow along with the next person.
No, and that's got to be, I mean, even the global supply chain's got to be one thing, but just the culture of your company. If you see that other people are just living their normal life, and yet you've got to go through, you know, a temperature check and a mask and 16 other things to even go sit at your desk in the same company, well, it's going to be interesting. And I'm trying to calculate kind of what the costs are to a lot of this, and just to see, even if you only have 50% of the demand and your costs are up by 20%, you know, is there reality to the fact that this is just going to be a long, sustained recession? When you see, I don't have my phone near me, but I think the stock market was up again 500 points today. So,
and how will companies prepare for this in the future or the long term in terms of cost? Like, I want to know how much our small business, our hairdressers and all of that, what are their costs going to increase? And what percentage of salaries are companies going to save in the bank, which is probably needed. I think people recognize that there wasn't enough money available for companies to prolong more than 2 weeks in some cases. But what does that shift in totality? I don't know. It's gonna be fun to watch.
Well, and look at Munich Re. Munich Reinsurance had a pandemic insurance policy a few years ago, and no one bought it. And there's been some writing about it very recently, that they're going to introduce, just like Swiss Reinsurance has climate change policies. So for your company, you can buy a long-term policy for how climate change is going to affect your company. And you should be able to buy a pandemic insurance policy. And it might be the pandemic insurance is required going forward. So
what company was that? New Green?
Munich Re,
Oh.
Munich, Germany. Munich
Okay.
Re. So these are reinsurers. So Allstate and State Farm and the insurance companies, the insurance companies have to insure themselves, and they insure themselves through reinsurance. So they're the backstop to the insurance that we get for our businesses.
That is a stock to invest in, because I bet it just goes through
I would look at Munich Re and Swiss Re hard. And full disclosure, I was a consultant for Swiss Re for a few years in Roussillon, Switzerland. And they have a Center for Global Dialogue, and what they really try to do is just be informed. So even back 15 years ago, they were having dialogue about culture change, or not climate change, and what it would do for insurance. And so let's say State Farm insures a bunch of condos in Miami, and they have a high risk of being flooded. Then Swiss Re might write a different policy for the city of Miami or the Broward County that would cover all flooding for that. And again, if you're just in Miami, it's a huge risk. But if you spread that risk across the whole world, it should be manageable. And so the pandemic insurance was kind of like that. So let's say there's a pandemic and it's high here and low there, and you lose this many people or you pay out. And the big reason, to be really morbid for a minute, is all the life insurance policies that are being paid out. So the pandemic insurance for the reinsurance was partly for life insurers to say, if suddenly there's a pandemic, and they learned about this during, I worked with them when texting in your car started. And texting in your car created a huge aberration to all the actuarial tables, because it was like throwing a random hand grenade into everyone's life. There were all these car accidents. There were all these car accidents that couldn't really be predicted. And they affected, you might be a perfectly healthy 19-year-old, or you might be a 92-year-old senile person. It didn't matter. So they had to readjust all the actuarial tables for texting and driving. So now they'll have to readjust them all for pandemic related, and health insurance costs are going to go through the roof for anybody who's diabetic and has comorbidities. So you're not going to be able to buy life insurance. I mean, it's the ripple effects, like you say, if you try to get your head around where the costs are, if you work in these industries, the conversation has really ratcheted up in some interesting ways. But insurance, the way to go. Sorry, this is pretty.
Well, my dad's been telling me since I was 8.
Good. Smart guy.
Well, one of the things that makes me think about, and it's like, you look back and it's like we get passes to Lagoon and the zoo, and you go to movie theaters, and no one ever checked if you were sick for anything. You go do whatever you want and be like, you look at someone, oh, they're sick. And it almost makes me think maybe we should have thought about it and said, hey, if you're sick, you can't come here.
Yeah, like what are the new rules going to be moving forward? Well, that's something that like Patrick and I talked about at the start, because 80,000 people in the US or whatever it is die from the flu every year, and nobody thinks twice about who's coughing on you or who's sneezing next to you and all that kind of stuff. If everyone's so scared, we should have been monitoring that kind of stuff beforehand.
Well, I mean, people get sick, sicknesses go around, but if you're not doing anything to, I was listening to a Joe Rogan podcast, and he goes, you're hearing all these people like, oh, you just stay inside. No one's saying anything about, let's see what we can do to build our immunity. And it's a lot of it seems very reactive. Oh, we're going to shut down. We're not going to think about what are we going to do when we have to open back up, or how are we going to keep healthy people healthy. I was looking into the Spanish flu, and it wasn't the first, I think there's 2 or 3 rounds, and it was the second round after everyone had already been sick and lowered their immune system that when they got hurt. So it's like, if you could keep immune systems up and be a little more proactive, you might be able to come out on top and better.
So Kevin,
Maybe.
are you going to go drink water with your cows? that podcast, that was one of the things he mentioned, and it was good. He's like, oh, I just drink a little water out of my cow's trough with them. You get all the good bacteria.
Yeah. Well, I've learned that, if you drink lots of water and don't eat a ton of sugar, that your body will process everything better. You'll flush out viruses and bacteria easier. Because I think the sugar feeds the bacteria. I don't know about the virus. And then if you have plenty of water, it helps flush everything out better. And then vitamin D, but apparently that's hard to come by after that podcast came out. So.
Well, I'm glad you're saying. I have a cousin who's a doctor, and he hardly ever tells any of us what to do in the family, but he told everyone in the family to lose weight. He said the biggest thing he was seeing was weight was a huge factor, and it encouraged. I lost 10 pounds since he told me that. Like, I'm just like, if the difference in me living or dying from COVID at my age is 10% of my body weight, I will lose. And he said, just lose 10% of your body weight. And I'm like doing the math. Okay, I'll try. But I didn't know about vitamin D, but yeah, trying to stay healthier. But I think the original point of just, if you're sick, the social norms or even the work policy to say don't come to work when you're sick. And that was starting already a little bit. People were saying, if you're sick, don't come in before the pandemic, some companies. But it used to be a badge of honor where even if you were totally sick, you made it to work. You fought for that and you sat there and sniffled all through the meeting. And that's not.
I guess my sister she works up at one of the ski resorts. I forget which one, in the lodge, and she was sick and she called in and said, "Hey, I'm not coming in." Her boss says, "No, you need to come in. Like, we need you into work."
Wow.
I mean, I talked to my boss about it. And before Dominion bought Questar, a lot of people like, I don't want to call in sick because then it's, sick time and vacation time were the same. It's like, I don't want to use my vacation time because I'm sick.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, like, I've always had the thing is, if you're sick, you need to be home, because then you're not getting everyone else sick. You're able to recover.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people are, like you said, like, oh, I'm not that sick. It's not that bad. I just won't touch anybody, or I'll do this or do that.
Right. Or even because I don't know, I mean, I just was thinking of my doctor's office. You can go in one door if you're sick and go in a different door if you're well, and stay in a different waiting room, the sick waiting room and the well waiting room. And so maybe we'll see offices that have more of sort of immune compromised versus healthy entrances, or elevators. Elevators are another big thing, Kaylin, especially if you want to invest somewhere, invest in elevators, because everyone's going to have more elevators, because you can't pack people into one elevator anymore. And that's going to persist for a long time. So
well, what I was also considering or thinking about is retail was already struggling, not primarily because they just didn't know what to do with their space and their actual buildings and how to use those properly. And so they just keep filling them, right? Because they don't know what else to do. So now is there going to be some switch between restaurants and retailers of retailers scale everything down, it's just for display purposes, and then you go home and buy it or whatever it is. And then all of the restaurants move into these large open spaces so they can keep things socially distanced.
That'd be really interesting.
Yeah,
well,
good ask. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Really good aspect, because you think of retail and how high of touch points. So during this, I went to the liquor store and I was like, oh, grab this. And I'm like, oh, can't grab this bottle. I need to decide. And so how much are people going to do that? Like with shoes and clothes and trying stuff on.
Yeah. And does the virus live on these things long or short? And do you have to wear gloves, or how do you do it? No, exactly the same. Because I live near the outlet malls in Park City, and some of them stayed open. And if I went for a walk, you could walk in and out of a store, but you weren't. I wasn't gonna touch things, bring them to the cashier and check out. Going in and out of a store wasn't gonna hurt you, but if you started touching things, then you didn't know. But I think there's also, I'd add to your model EP a third thing, which is entertainment.
Yes, I know. I couldn't even think about that.
Yeah, so retail, restaurants, and entertainment, because the idea that some people are saying that movie theaters and stuff are going to spike once we have a vaccine, because people are going to want to go back to, they'll be so sick of Netflix, they'll be so sick of being home, they'll go to anything, live concerts and live plays and live everything is supposed to spike afterwards. But I don't know if it's just wishful thinking, maybe Broadway never comes back. New York
the organizers may not let it, the venue could hold 10,000, they say, well, we're only going to put 6.
Mm.
And then it's not profitable for that.
Right.
No, just charge more.
Utah, actually, the Eccles Theater, I got my email tonight that for next season, they have already delayed about half of the shows from next season.
Oh, interesting. Well, I know for speaking and teaching, it's either online or it's gone for another year. Brookings is closed to the public until next year, a lot of that kind of stuff. But that's not entertainment, that's edutainment.
So I was talking to my aunt the other day, and we were talking about industries that are going to suffer. And I guess Macy's has been not in the Fortune 500 for the first time in like 100 years.
We're already on the decline now.
Yeah. Well, but then she was saying that an idea for those, because the building, like it's a huge building. Why don't you put like super cheap housing? Give kind of an idea. Someone was,
Repurpose the building.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, definitely, I hope we're going to see some different things because having to live close cheek to jaw with other people is a big risk factor right now.
We actually talked today at work, and we were talking about, and I work for a medical device company, so we also see decline in sales in our medical devices just because of selective surgeries delays. But what some of our marketing people are saying, that what they see that there is such a backlog of those surgeries, like even urology surgeries, that once they start doing all of those surgeries, it will take them 7 to 8 months to go through their backlog. And at the same time, with all of these new additional cleaning requirements, it takes them longer. So the throughput will go down. And there will not be even enough places to have those surgeries. If they want to keep up with the volume of surgeries, they will need to reconsider it. Would they want to have new, maybe alternative sites and surgical clinics where they can do some type of additional volume of surgical procedures? And this going back to EP's comment about what happened with retails, and there is so much space, what came to my mind. And I don't know how it's all going to play out, but it was also very interesting to see the dynamic in surgery and the hospitals and what they are going through.
Right. Oh, that's fascinating. Because I have heard some people say that commercial real estate is dead because everyone will work from home, and other people are saying they're going to need twice as much space, so it's going to go up, and maybe it nets out to zero. But I haven't heard about medical procedures like that. So EP, are they doing elective surgery at the U hospital, or do you know? Yeah.
Yeah, one of my friends is a urology fellow, actually, so it's funny that you say that. And they immediately canceled like everything. She didn't do surgery or do any type of procedure until June 1. Then they've started doing things again, and they've talked about, working more hours, working Saturdays, whatever, to get that backlog back up to speed. Orthopedics, they're doing pretty much everything, but I do know that regardless of what the surgery is, any patient who goes into surgery has to be tested for COVID in Utah, at least, which makes me wonder this whole, like, we didn't have enough tests thing. But anyway, it's another story. So everyone gets tested. And if they are, and then they have to wait 15 minutes for the results or something. And basically, if they're positive, they like get sent home, which doesn't make sense.
But see, this is the problem I see in airports in Singapore and Hong Kong. I was told you go to the airport and you have to get tested before you get on the plane. So you go to the airport, you get tested, you wait your 15 minutes, but then same thing. If you're positive, you go home, or you walk straight back to the airport, and it doesn't make any sense. Like, I could see them keeping, sorry, my dog is needing a lot of attention. He feels left out of the conversation. But what you do with the person who's positive or symptomatic or has the high fever, and, can you stick them all in little isolation chambers? In other countries, they can take the person, throw a hazmat suit over them, and take them to a hotel that's an incubation hotel and make them stay there for 2 weeks.
But what about how they infected people getting to that airport? Did they take a subway or an Uber or whatever, and now they're not, even with the contact tracing isn't immediate enough to be able to completely like shut everything down that person just came into.
And so much relies on your goodwill that says, oh, I was around somebody with symptoms, but I really want to go to the baseball game, so I'm going. And no one will ever catch me, or there is no liability on me. And then I think to Kevin's point, there's liability on the companies. So if I do say, I'm going to, I don't know, open my store and someone gets sick, I don't think anybody knows yet the legal ramifications of, if my cashier was sick and I let them work, if I called in the sick person and said, you have to come in, is my company liable? Is my boss liable? Am I liable? Or is nobody liable for anything?
That's also interesting because there's already been lawsuits filed with business owners refusing to serve customers that don't wear masks.
Yeah.
For fear of stuff like that. So I wonder how many will come from the other direction too, like the business owners being really strict and whatnot, and then people being like, well, this is a free country, I can do whatever I want, you know, and you've got that balance as well.
But
Yeah,
right. But this administration doesn't talk about, we have a very strong code of law in public health. I mean, if you are a leper, you cannot go, like, it's like, you know, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. You can't put other people at risk. So the rights thing is very politicized, which we all know and we're living with.
My uncle's actually a workers' comp attorney at a firm, not for a specific company. And he said that they're getting on average like one completely bogus COVID claim a day. Like everyone's just trying to, you know, reach for something. And he said that their volume of cases that they take on hasn't changed, but their volume of cases that people inquire about has gone like through the roof.
Well, and that's where this faculty thing, you know, so I don't know if I'm allowed to say I won't teach if somebody says you have to go show up and teach in a closed room with no windows of 40 people who have not been tested. Because the last teaching I did in I don't know, maybe the end of February, beginning of March, was exactly that. It was 20 people from 12 different countries in a windowless room for 2 solid days in New York City. And at the time I didn't know enough about COVID, but I would not do that again right now. But does that mean I get fired, I get blacklisted, I'm liable to pay back the school? So I have had contracts where if you don't show up to teach, you're liable to pay back the school for how much all those people paid in tuition. So let's say each of those people paid, this is my Mexico City contract. It's like, if I don't show up and they have a full room, I have to compensate them for all the money they lost, which is a lot of money. So, but if you don't show up for COVID reasons, so that's why I'm like, maybe I can buy myself insurance to then, it's like travel insurance. I can't make it, my insurance company pays the money to the speakers bureau. But everybody's trying to figure, and I'm not even a big fish. Like imagine people who, like Tony Robbins, and there's $1 million, you know, dollars worth of tickets in the theater, or Beyonce or something. Like, how does this work if Beyonce says, no, too much COVID risk, I'm not showing up?
Yeah, think about that.
People, but but anyway, so the path to value is really opaque right now. And what I would just urge each of you to do is don't ignore the changes. The most tempting thing to do is to just say, things are fine, I don't see the problem, you know, right now it doesn't affect me. The most useful thing to do is play out, what's the worst possible thing that could happen? Can I withstand it? What are 2 or 3 things that if they came together, they'd really threaten myself, my family, my team, my company, and then try to be ready. And you know, force yourself to play out some of the scenarios that are not comfortable. So sorry, but that's what we should be all doing.
It is actually really good advice, because like even thinking about where I work and like seeing how more and more people getting furloughed, it is a little bit becomes stressful, and because it's like every week and it changes every single week. Yeah, there is like no one knows what is gonna happen, right? Because no one has been in pandemic. No one can predict anything. We have like updated projections weekly, so it's been like very fluid. And I would say like looking at it, I definitely see that the company, which is financially doing, I mean, like overall pretty good, but when you see all of the sales declining, it is a sign, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, it is definitely becomes a little bit more stressful seeing all of it and understanding that there should be something happening if the company wants to remain financially stable and competitive in the long term. They probably will have to do something in the short term.
Mhm. Very well said. Yeah, hope for the best, plan for the worst. We should be in a 2 to 3 year recession that's going to be at least double dip, if not triple dip, depending. Because South America is going to be, I mean, already before all of this, Guatemala and a lot of countries were in dire straits, and Venezuela, and it's going to be nasty in South America. It's going to be nasty in India. Looks like it's going to be nasty in a lot of parts of America, the United States part. And there's the buying power is going to be down in a lot of areas, and the supply chain is going to be inefficient in a lot of areas. And there will be business. You know, a friend of mine works in ventilation and heating and cooling, and they're all being asked to redo all the ducts and redo all the vents and redo all the fans, and they're busy as busy can be. But no one wants to pay. You know, so everyone needs it, and it's going to be hard to provide what's necessary. So, so good comments. And it is, but when things get scary, you have a lot of tools, you have a lot of support networks, you have a big brain. Each and every one of you does. And just, you know, think optionality. What options can you keep open in case the worst happens in your industry, with your family? I mean, hopefully each of you has a plan for if tomorrow you spike a fever and you start coughing, you know exactly the first 4 people you're going to call and what you're going to do, and that you've got food and water in your house. And if you don't, I mean, and of course we all also had earthquakes during the pandemic. So if you don't have your earthquake go bag and your 5 gallons of water and your plan for who to call and your note to, you know, hand to the EMT when they come to pick you up off the floor, go do that. And make sure your mother and father, anybody old in your family, does that. Because those are the sad situations where it's like everything was okay and then they start getting sick, and then 2 or 3 days later, when they're not capable of figuring out what happens to their dog, you know, who's taking care of their kids. Those are the sad, well, they're all sad stories, but those are really sad stories. So emergency plan for yourself, for everyone you care about, and hope you never have to use it. So anyway, I'm sorry, this is my last slam for maybe forever, but what we're going to do, because I am leaving the University of Utah and hopefully going to the beautiful Washington University Brookings world, if they don't fire me for being a COVID advocate, is stay in touch with you. I'm going to keep trying to send you papers. The thing I sent around today, if you feel like reading it, give me back comments or answering the prompts, please do. You know, I love hearing from you. I'll still have my Eccles email for probably a long time. My WashU email I'm sending around now, but it's super simple because it's just Gorman. I guess I'm the only Gorman in WashU. There's no numbers or anything. I'm going to keep doing the same kind of work. I'm going to keep doing strategic leadership, trying to build skills, trying to write stuff, trying to help people with their career path to value. And I'm going to continue to stay in touch with Aaron and EP. And so this is not really the end, but kind of it is the end. So
Thank you for all of the time that you put into us and helped us with this continuing stuff. It has been really nice for the last year to keep talking and keep thinking, and I really appreciate you facilitating that for us.
Oh, good. Well, I feel like you could keep it all going. There's plenty of people on the list, and not too many people came tonight, but you know who the rest of the gang is. And then I'm handing off the center to Ruchi Watson, and she already works in the dean's office at Eccles. She knows the school super well, and she's gonna probably work with EP to figure out what kind of a slamish thing should keep going, or if there should be mentoring circles, or if there should be gatherings or community outreach or facilitated discussions. I mean, so there's still, this isn't going away as a structural piece of the Goff Center. And the people, especially with EP and Aaron on the team, something good will happen.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I can just echo what Kaylin said. Thank you so much for investing your time, letting me to join and crash your party of Slam. I'm so thankful that I saw that email a year ago and I was able to join and just to show up. Yeah, thank you so much. From my side, I know that I will do my best, and all of your knowledge, you are like so incredible, so much knowledge, and sharing it in such easy way that it is so easy to understand.
Well, thank you. It's been a joy having you guys, and you've helped me to clarify my message, and it's been very mutually beneficial. So yay. So stay in touch though, and if you ever are thinking, oh, should I write to Trish or not, write to me. The worst that can happen is I say, I'm busy, I'll write back to you whenever. Or the really worst that can happen is I send you the draft of a book chapter or something, and then you're in trouble, because then you're going to start getting stuff from me. So some really good things are happening with my publishing. I'm getting a really good reception from some publishers. So I'm hopeful I'll have some good stuff coming out.
Awesome.
Awesome. All right. Guys, stay well, stay employed, stay valuable, all that good stuff. I'm not too sentimental, so I'm just going to hang up now.
Okay, thanks, Trish.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.